Morning, everybody, and welcome to these members that are online this morning. Can I get Tyrone to start with the karakia, please?
Whakapakataho ki te uru, whakapakataho ki te tonga, kia makina kina kiuta, kia mātaratara ki kai. E he ake ana te ata kura, he tio, he puka, he pouhu, ti hei mō.
Thank you. Right, I've got no apologies at this stage. Everybody is here. I do note there's 2 members online. Declarations of interest, I'm going to take those throughout the meeting. And on to confirmation of previous minutes. Any issues there? No, if not, I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. So Ruben's happy to move and Scott's happy to second. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Next one, at this stage, we've got no one. Must be saving up for next meeting. there is a lot to cover in the next meeting, I'm sure. Okay, and deputations, once again, I haven't received any deputations. Yep. Once again, probably saving up for the next meeting. Okay, so presentations, no presentations of petitions, sorry. Item 7, going through real fast today, is Reserve Management Committee minutes. Anything you want to highlight, bring to our attention from those?
No, I think all of these are pretty straightforward.
The only question I had was what's not there, which is there's nothing from
So I've sent out a request about a week ago asking all of the reserve management committees to send in their minutes, hopefully before the last meeting. I'll be following up with some of those who have yet to do so.
Okay. You want to say the minutes that we've got in front of us, fairly straightforward. Any questions or issues up from those?
Refreshingly uncontroversial.
Yes, that's good to hear. Other than that, okay, if we want to, I will ask for a mover and seconder to receive those minutes.
Happy to move.
Andrew and Nigel.
Happy to.
All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Right, we're going through quite quickly this morning. Item 8, declarations. Working party. Now, I notice Liz is online. Liz, do you want to talk to this at all? Your name is online.
I think it's all reasonably self-explanatory. I would apologise that it's taken 3 years to get there. Part of that, everybody blames COVID, so I'm going to blame that for part of it. But it's also partly because of wanting the forum in Akaroa to get running. But other than that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The board actually has operated without that working party for 3 years, so that's says something in itself, really.
Do you have any questions of Liz? Right, we have got recommendations in front of us. Okay, Scott's happy to move. Seconder?
I'll second.
Yeah. Tyrone's happy to second.
It's a good initiative. No, this is a good
Wrap ups.
wrap up and way forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved by Scott, seconded by Tyrone. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thanks, Liz. Right. Yeah, no, like I say, we've found a way forward, and that's great. Okay.
We're finding a way forward.
Yes, it's a wheels in motion. Right. Okay. This is the interesting part of the meeting. It is elected members exchange. Really.
Oh.
I know. It's a new record, isn't it? So okay, Scott, have you got anything to share with the members exchange?
No, I've met with some of the Littleton Yacht Club members on Saturday. And we'll chat with them and about Naval Point and Sailing GP, which looks like it's going to be pretty full on. There was just some concerns for the community about the transport plan and when that will be released. What's happening for park and ride and all that sort of stuff. So if we could probably look at doing some comms around that, if Christchurch NZ and Christchurch City Council had finalised that plan. Maybe. Apart from that, I met with Audenbradley Park working party, I guess it's called. Well, the average member is about 86 years old. And they meet there on the weekends and do voluntary work. And this year, the CAF, Audenbradley CAF, is going to open for 6 months of the year, fully staffed and with a liquor license. So that should be good. We've already got 4 triathlon events booked in with them, and lots of gardening clubs around the bay. So it should be really good to promote not only Te Ao Pitiki but Audenbradley Park. Apart from that, been great weather and lots of surveys to fill out. How are you, mate?
Hey, good. Had a great meeting yesterday in Akaroa with somewhere between about 130 and 100 plus people. Went reasonably well. Expected the odd sort of stand up, but it was pretty convivial all around. Sea level management and the discussions around that, and talking about showing the maps and what might happen and how to use it online. It was great, good communication down. Destination management, the presentation by Christchurch NZ was very, very good. Showed some of the old, the other destination management plans that have been done around the country and talked about the environment and the cruise ships and all of the stuff that could come out in that management plan. I stood up and said it's very, very important that people understand and get on board, that we don't want it one-sided in any way. Then we went on to the harbour master of the cruise ships, and what was coming, what was going, and what the new rules were with the harbour. And that was all well received, really. It was a really good meeting. It just turned to shit at the end when they tried to talk about traffic management, but that's okay. I think in the bigger picture, some community input into some of that traffic management would be a good thing. I think the big issue is where to park the buses. Hop on, hop off idea has some flaws in it, and obviously getting buses through town is important still. They've got to get them through to Anuku, you've got to get them through to Takapaniki and the likes. And so some more discussion, and hopefully some of that will come out through the destination management plan. Other than that, I just really, and I know we've been around it and signed it off and it's moved on and it's in the annual plan, but the new cottage, probably the last thing I really want to bring up. You know, I've been down there, I've photographed it at the last 2 flooding events. The water's right up to the floor. Lifting it up would only mean it's sitting up on a little island in the middle of nowhere with the flooding. That discussion around that house needs to continue as to whether it is appropriate still to keep it there. To lift it up, they need to raise the ground, and it will need to raise the ground onto Jolly Street and around the corner if it's going to be ever successful in keeping that building in that place. So I'm happy to do a submission at the next meeting and do some photos and things if it helps that discussion go forward. Your thoughts, Andrew?
Do a submission at the next meeting, explain.
Well, I was just going to suggest that if maybe could we go back out to the community for discussion about maybe relocating that building. We've got the discussion coming up about the Banks Peninsula meat sites. Perhaps it can be put there or removed.
There are resolutions on the books already.
Yes, I know.
Which we passed and then further confirmed.
That's right.
So that's the environment in which we're working.
I also think there's a report coming, a building and sustainability report coming as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
So
and it's going to go through
at
resource consent.
Yeah, so they'll look at it's in the flood zone and all that sort of stuff.
I'll leave it alone then. Yeah.
I mean, the new
Keep
board
it open,
might
eh?
have a different view than the current board, but, you know, at the end of the day, we did make a
I
decision.
know,
We
and
asked for further information in the context of the decision we
Yeah.
made, and we then reconfirmed our decision. I don't think there's much to suggest that if you brought that back to this board, they wouldn't just make the same decision again.
that's fair enough. It's just with the photos I took and I'm rethinking it. And, you know, if you did even raise it up, it would be standing alone in the middle of a big puddle. At least twice on the way it's going twice a year. Just something to think about going forward. That's all I've got.
That's all you've got, okay. I'll go Ruben next, and I'll come back to the guys on the screen in a moment. So, Ruben.
Cool. So yesterday I went along to the AGM of the Littleton Historic Museum Society, or Te Waka. It's a really good meeting, really good attendance. The current people in the current roles were all re-elected, so that's excellent, but they are seeking new members to join them. And as we'll recall from the presentation that Peter brought to us, to the board, they've got a big project on the go, but a really passionate team and a lot of support from Littleton residents, and not necessarily people with millions and millions of dollars yet. And the meeting also finished with a presentation from Ben Brown, which was really fascinating and interesting and a good take on history in the context of museums. So it was a really good afternoon event. Separate to that, there's been a few people raised the issue of the ongoing work on Creasy Terrace, impacts that's having on their water supply, both losing water completely and having massively variable water pressure, and ultimately the lack of comms around that. So they just feel like, I think people understand and appreciate what has to happen and are grateful for having water main renewal, but they just like to know when it's going to start and when it's going to stop, and when they can have a good shower and when they can't. These things make a huge difference to your day and other people's potentially. So
Has the CSR already been done on the top? Like I did see a little bit of the chat
yeah,
around it. So I just wondered how much of that was being.
yes, I'm not sure of that, but I mean that's certainly what I always, if people contact me, I always say, have you pushed it through? And often the response is yes, we have, and that's and because we're not happy with that response, that's why we're now coming to you. And then the only other two things was that there was a really good exhibition in the Woolstore space on Saturday, which was artwork by neurodiverse artists that the White Room Trust had a workshop within that space and then had a public exhibition. And it's really good to see. I know people are always really grateful to get into that building and have a look around. And just on the subject of art and artists in port, there's a big profile piece on the front page of the press and on Stuff Today that's also accompanied with a documentary that Gerard Smythe from Frank Film has made. So it's like Littleton Week. And
Great. There was a quote in that article that said Littleton was rough. So I was horrified to read. I was like, oh, in what universe was Littleton ever rough?
Oh gosh,
the most nurturing, wonderful,
Town.
supportive port town you could possibly rough.
And if you don't accept that, you'll thump them.
I know I did for the trees were just out in the
Okay.
forest.
That's everything from
That's
that.
you. Okay, I will go back. Okay, Jamie's gone. I'll go back to Howard and then see if Jamie's back. We'll catch him between times. Howard, you got anything to share from Members Exchange?
No, everyone's looking forward to summer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There has been a bit of interest. I think the last couple of days, there's an article in the paper about Christchurch NZ doing a survey, visitor and resident survey, and there has been a bit of submission. If the council can come back with some details of how residents make submissions to this, how they get the results of it, what the survey is and what the visitor survey is. And businesses are interested in making submissions, but because they don't want it to be co-opted by the big major players who only have self-interest and concern. They want it
make sure that they have a ability to make a submission. So if the council can come back with information on how people make a submission to this survey, that'd be great.
Director of Christchurch and Z, I can answer that immediately. They follow the link in the advertising they've seen and they fill out the survey. There's no requirement for council to give any further information. They simply fill out the survey.
So there is links everywhere that come out with that advertising, Howard. So it is around.
It's all over Facebook.
We can share it perhaps around the emails. You can then email it out to people that might not be connected in other ways. But yes, it definitely has gone around. I have seen it a few times come through different systems.
Thank you very much for everyone for that information. It's grateful that you have more knowledge than me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Howard. Jamie, we'll catch you while you're back. You got anything to share, Members Exchange?
No, all good at my end, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Andrew, got any updates?
Thank you. Meeting in Akaroa yesterday, well attended, a pretty lively meeting. Everybody was reasonably well behaved. It was good. I mean, the comment I would make, and Nigel, you've given a pretty good update as to the content of the meeting and what was talked about there. The fact that we had the mayor, the deputy mayor, a number of community board members, a number of people that are running for council and community board as well. And the chief executive of Christchurch NZ and 2 senior staff from Christchurch NZ in the room all at the same time on a Sunday afternoon tells us that both council and Christchurch NZ and elected members, and there were a number of council staff there of course as well, tells us that council, Christchurch NZ and elected members are taking Akaroa and its issues very seriously. And I hope that wasn't lost on anybody. I don't think it was. I think there was a high level of appreciation that the right people had made the effort to be there, so that was good. I've been dealing with a number of issues coming out of the latest rain events, some of which are being unhelpfully politicised, it's fair to say. Little Akaroa, there was a good meeting there recently, which picked up the issues that we raised for the first time in Le Bons Bay in March. And this is about how the council and ECAN work together and making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And in particular, responsibility for what happens in stream or in river. If you've got trees have fallen into a stream, or you've got bank collapses, particularly where that river or stream goes through private property, what the responsibility of the private property owner is, and what permits are required, what consents are required, what ECAN should be expected to do, and what isn't council's responsibility. Similarly, culverts and water tables and drains and roadside maintenance, and council's responsibility to protect its own assets, but council not having a particular responsibility to protect private assets. So I would just make the point in this meeting that quite a bit of the work that landed in the Little Akaroa problems was already going on as a result of what happened in Le Bons Bay earlier in the year. It may have been contributed to by various Facebook posts, but certainly wasn't a direct result of Facebook conversations. I mean, all of the social media activity is helpful, is useful, and is interesting. But there's some pretty big pieces of work that were already ongoing as a result of Le Bons Bay that have landed usefully in Little Akaroa, and I had some positive comments at yesterday's Akaroa meeting from Little Akaroa people who were very happy with the way that's progressed. So that was good. Similarly, coming out of the rainfall event, retaining wall collapses, landslips, mud on the road, what some are describing as water leaks that when we investigate, my view is that some of them may in fact turn out to be land drainage issues, but that remains to be seen. SnapSense solves that people have put in, that there's some frustration that they're taking some time to be resolved. What I've been doing is educating people that have been getting upset about that with the fact that we've got a huge amount of work on at the moment in an under-resourced situation. We've still got a lot of people off sick, and we've still got some recruitment and resourcing issues. We are getting to all of these jobs, but in order of priority, and I think that's what the community would want, where there's risk to lifeline roading routes or where there are issues that are going to get worse unless we fix them straight away, they're going to get higher priority than maybe some of the smaller issues that, whilst they may be annoying and whilst they may be unsightly, are the less high priority than some of these bigger issues. So there's quite a few issues that I've been dealing with there across the whole peninsula, but Littleton in particular, I think was particularly badly hit with roading, mud, landslip, and some retaining wall floodings. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. I've got a number of AGMs I'm going to be attending between now and the end. And my intention is to keep going full throttle. I think my last official engagement is at midday on Saturday, the 8th of October. So that'll be the very last thing I'll do in my capacity as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew, for the busy fortnight update, and I appreciate that there's stuff, and that's I guess the hard thing going into this season we're going into is stuff still happening, and we're still doing business as usual as well as everything else that's going on out there. And so I appreciate the fact that you are out and about and keeping things ticking along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. Actually, just extending a little bit on what Andrew was saying around sort of the visible signs of climate change around Littleton. So you'll recall in the last meeting I talked a little bit about Udima Reserve and concerns around fire break there, but at the same time there are also concerns up in that part of the world around water runoff and how that's affecting the underlying land and like the instability there. So it's crazy that we've got a situation where people are worried about too much rain and also a fire risk. But that's the realities of the climate as you see that we're going. So there are some real dangers up there from both of those things. So just to a little bit more about Akaroa. The meeting yesterday was really fantastic. It's incredible. I was sort of just doing the numbers in my head a little bit. You basically got a town where 25% of the town's residents come along to a public meeting. I mean, there's some pretty big numbers. That's some high level of engagement that you see, and that's what you see all around the peninsula. So that's that's something that I think we've all noticed since we've been on the board of just how engaged our communities are, and just how just that level of personal contact that we have, and it's really quite special and quite something. So on that note, so I was in Cass Bay last weekend doing some plantings up in Steadfast, and people are really excited about the potential around the landscape plan there. They just really want to get cracking into building a track to the summit there, and so hopefully there'll be some clarity on how that's going to go in the coming weeks or months, obviously. But there's and that's what you see all over the peninsula. You see people champing at the bit to do stuff. They just need to be released into doing it. So that's that. So during this term, I've also been the board's delegate to Hiku, which is the red zone transformative land use group. And so we've got one meeting left, but I guess the role of me as a delegate has kind of diminished quite significantly since the red zone land in our board area was disposed of. With the scant over the council. But that's a really good. It's been an interesting process. I don't think it's been quite as toothy as the delegates probably would have liked. It hasn't really, it's really been sort of granting licenses to different community groups to do stuff around the red zone. So two things I note is that one, there are a hell of a lot of community groups that just really want bits of land to do good things with. To wit, Hunters Road over on the other side of the harbour, that's a bit of land that people really want to do stuff with. And secondly, that, there's still quite a lot up in the air regarding the red zone in town and, what's going to happen with it at the moment. I think we're probably, there's a lot of question marks around where that's going to go. So it's very interesting.
Dog park.
Something that will help offset the impacts of climate change would probably be helpful. So that's probably, yeah, that'll do.
Thank you. I just have a couple of updates. Thank you to staff for getting the notes out regarding the flooding hui and the river. A lot of the community have said thanks for such thorough notes and really well detailed and basically giving everybody ideas that stuff are going forward, and we have got a plan and it's really good, and a lot of people that couldn't be there are grateful for those notes. Birdling's flat lights. I did have someone come to me, and I have brought it through to staff, but I think the only thing that came out of the Birdling's flat lights is that a few people were surprised to come home that night to find the lights were on. I think everyone knew that it was going to be up, but they didn't know when. So I think waiting for the next part of the survey to see whether they want the lights to stay, lights to go, lights to be down to 3 or 4 placement lights will be interesting to see. But like I said, the only thing that they were shocked about was the fact that the lights came back on. They knew it was going to happen, but they didn't know when. So having perhaps a week in advance, by the way, the lights are coming back on next week. May have been good in hindsight, but once we all knew what was going on, and they're not on permanently now, they are on now because it's the end of that trial to see what the community want to do, and they can see the difference between lights off, lights on, and a few lights on. So good feedback from that, but like I say, the fact the lights came back on and they didn't expect it. Water Zone Committee last week was, week for last was really good. I think the Water Zone Committee are looking at how they can have more impact on what's going on around us. I mean, yes, they are helping with the planting of setbacks and all that kind of stuff, but what else can the Water Zone Committee do in the way of helping with the flooding issues? And it's, I think you were saying before about getting more teeth, getting more teeth into issues that do affect the Peninsula and the Zone Committee itself. And the last one, it's just regarding the feedlots in Kaituna. Once again, more information is coming out and lots of questions coming my way, which I can't answer because obviously I'm out of consenting. A lot of that stuff is through consenting. But yeah, just really not strange questions. They, I guess, wanted to know, the latest question that came out was regarding paper roads and how that affects people's land and what people can do on paper roads. So that, I guess, comes to the bigger picture of, we have a lot of paper roads on the peninsula. Is there a way forward going around it? What are we doing? I know it has come up in, to remind me, it's come up in the past about access and paper roads, and I think the council did say that they may look at that in the future, but it's going to be such a huge task that.
I didn't say I can look at it and see what we do is we, because it's thousands, we move by exception. So when there is an issue, we'll probably when that is dealt with.
Okay. Yeah.
So sorry. What is that? Where does that leave us?
Apparently apparently they are wanting to build the feedlots over top of the paper road. And why has the community them do that? Well, we haven't seen anything to do with that paper road, and like I say, so I've just asked staff and earlier.
I think there is some misinformation there, though, probably by someone saying they're building over a paper road. Because if they went through the consent process, they are allowed to build over a paper road. They just have to provide a different access or a different road to the same service and ability. So, and that would have been all done through the consent.
Yeah, so consenting is, like I say, consenting doesn't come through the board.
Yeah. There
are some aspects that do, as Penelope was saying about road access or whatever, but I haven't seen anything regarding the paper road. But like I say, why they're coming to us and saying, why have we passed anything? Like I say, we see them when we need to, you know, move a boundary of a road or whatever, but not when someone's building over a paper road. But as you're saying, that goes through the consenting process, so it's voluntarily
I
covered.
had some correspondence with Andrew Bullock, I think it was Andrew Bullock from the roading team a few weeks back, and if there's a paper road and it hasn't been serviced at all by the council, then do not expect it to be serviced and do not expect access to be granted to private residents. If there is a paper road that is serviced or accessed at the moment, then there will be continued service and access. And that's that.
Yeah. Paper roads are huge.
Yeah.
I know we had an issue of people getting walking access through paper roads, and that's how it's come up in the past. But
So is the consent being reviewed?
what's that for?
The
All I got was why had the board passed you know, we hadn't passed any resolution to say that they could build on a paper road. It hasn't come to us.
Don't
it's-
need to, no.
No,
We
and so
haven't received any request for road stopping either.
no.
Yeah,
It's getting looked at by a commission anyway to set up
Yeah.
because there's been so
So,
many
like I say,
complaints.
I have raised it, and like I say, I did kind of understand that it wasn't, you know, a lot to do with that feedlot is out of our jurisdiction. But like I say, it's come to us.
So what's the timeline for the resource consent process for that?
Don't know, it's currently sitting with ECAN, my understanding.
yeah, the consent's been granted by a commissioner on the city council on consenting referrals, but ECAN haven't yet issued their consent. Obviously, some concerns have been raised around wastewater discharge, effluent discharge into waterways, and how that. That's for ECAN to take into account. We're demonstrations outside of ECAN, and so that's for ECAN to take into account. The thing can't be built unless ECAN provide the required consents, and we don't get whether they won't.
But like I say, that's once again, it's out of our, it's,
Yeah.
we haven't got any.
And the community board hasn't had a word at all.
No.
The council's consenting decision was made by a commissioner, it wasn't made by councillors. The community board never had a word.
No.
And then there's all the issue about the notification. Well, if local residents weren't notified, then the community board wasn't going to be notified.
No, like I say, I was just bringing up the concern, and like I did say back then that we hadn't seen anything regarding paper road changes. So just passing on that for information at this point. So I think that is the end of us. I'll get Tyrone.
One more
Oh, yes,
thing.
sorry.
I spoke to Liz a few weeks back. We're the only board that doesn't have a photo up on the wall on this.
Yeah, I raised that some time ago, and it would be good to know that that was resolved by the end of this term.
Before we, yeah, because there is one in Little River and there is one in Tekiro, I'm pretty sure.
And there's a nice timeline here.
Yeah.
Which there's one particular photo that's notably missing from.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get that sorted out.
People need to know who they can hold to account.
And people need to know who have been held to account.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay, on that note, I guess we get to close the meeting. So Tyrone, we're close with the karakia.
I'll say we're also the only board that's ever been visited by the CEO of the Christchurch City Council, and I'm wondering if she's going to turn up this time.
And yeah.
But anyway. Kia tau kia tātou katoa te atu pai o te tata ara ki a iwi kua te ata atu. Ata aku, te whiwhi o taku.